Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
WWE versus, well, I guess the rest of the world. I'm Oli Davis, this is Luke Owen. Welcome to WrestleRamble, where today we're kicking off with what I think is the biggest story of the week, really.
You wanted to say best, didn't you?
Best, biggest. And that is that the Supercard show is already a huge success. This is the Madison Square Garden joint New Japan and ROH G1 Supercard event that's going on WrestleMania weekend, the Saturday before WrestleMania, so the same night as NXT TakeOver. It's being held in WWE's spiritual home of MSG.
What they call their Mecca.
Exactly. The first wrestling event to be held there that's non-WWE since the 1920s. So that's a huge deal in itself. And, WWE actively tried to stop that from happening. Like, that's not just a reported thing. The Ring of Honor, not just Joe Koff, no, I think it was Joe Koff. So the COO of Ring of Honor, Joe Koff, he said, we had the date secured, Madison Square Garden signed off on it, WWE blocked it from happening, and they returned the date.
One call is all it took.
Yeah. Thing is, ROH is owned by Sinclair Broadcasting, which is an enormous, far more evil corporation than WWE. So they come in and they say, no, mate.
Contracts have been signed.
WWE can't play this. We're the bigger boys here.
But it's like, legally, WWE couldn't block them because they'd signed dates.
Exactly. But, usually, WWE are used to being the top dog. So, even though they don't really have a legal leg to stand on, see the Too Sweet Cease and Desist stuff with the Young Bucks from last year, they can win just because they have more money to chuck at the problem. CM Punk's an example. He fought it, though, and he eventually came up on top. But really, who did come up on top? You had one big organisation who was just like, let's screw with this guy. And CM Punk, where he was fighting something for 3 years. It was hanging over him and all these relationships with friends.
Pretty much.
So that's the first loss for WWE. The fact that Sinclair come in and go, no, we are doing this show. And the report at the time was that MSG did not want to take a legal bullet for WWE.
Absolutely not. Well, why would you?
Why would you?
Because at this point, if you're MSG, WWE aren't putting on shows there anymore. They don't do TV tapings from there. They only do house shows every once in a while. Because MSG is not actually suited to their needs because it's technically too small, they're doing things at the Barclays Center. They're doing things elsewhere. So they're not putting on shows at Madison Square Garden anymore. So if you're MSG, you're like, why aren't we putting on wrestling with other companies?
Yeah, it's like, we got The Undertaker. That's great. We got Ronda Rousey, her first match. Sure, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But they're only house shows at the end of the day.
What have you done for me lately?
Yeah, what are the big pay-per-views coming live from Madison Square Garden?
Oh, do you know, I always think of the Royal Rumble 2000 when you had the taxi cab over the thing. Love the way that Madison Square Garden looks with WWF pay-per-views and stuff.
Back in the day, with the short entrance to the ring and everything.
And you could see the entrance as well because of the way that the building's structured.
Yeah,
you're looking at the entrance while you're looking at the ring.
Back in the days when WWE television looked distinct and exciting and different from each other rather than just all the same set with different graphics. But granted, those LED ring posts are awesome. So that was the first thing, and the show's going ahead. After it was called off and everything, ROH and New Japan surprise everyone by going, yep, it's happening at Madison Square Garden on WrestleMania weekend.
Yep, and we've got Cody, we've got the Bucks, Kazuchika Kurokawa, Tetsuya Naito. They're all gonna be there. So come on down if you fancy it. And by the looks of things, a lot of people fancied it.
Well, so in the Wrestling Observer, Meltzer writes how that first, not being able to block it, that's one thing that's probably, Vince McMahon's probably there going, that was annoying. So he's seething. Yeah. But then he's probably sitting back in his chair and going, but no one's going to see a bingo hall show like that.
No, exactly. No one's going to buy a Ring of Honor ticket. Their highest attendance rate's around the 5,000 mark, maybe even less than that. No one's going to go and see that at Madison Square Garden. They haven't got a big name to put on there. They've got a mid-carder Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, dashing Cody. What was his name again? Didn't he have a moustache at one point?
He was in several tag teams with people.
Randy Orton's little protege guy used to get him coffee. And that I've lost where I was now.
Sorry, we were talking about Vince McMahon just sitting back and just being like this. Pah, no one's going to go to that.
Sure, there was that all-in thing, but that was only 10,000 tickets. That's a one-off.
It's a one-off. It's a fluke.
This
a mistake, if you will.
This one has 15,000 tickets. No way, not on my home turf.
No way, Jose. Where's he been?
And then Joe Koff, in a statement to Post Wrestling and John Pollock, says that pre-sale only. So this was that we're recording this on Thursday. Tickets came online on Wednesday, the 8th. Just for people who had signed up to Honor Club.
Which is their version of the WWE Network.
Yeah, like their streaming service. It has other perks, like you can... There's different tiers.
Yeah, but you can essentially... It's an Honor Club for a reason. Mm. You get lots of perks and benefits.
Like early access to tickets. 9,000 tickets were sold in the pre-sale on the first day.
9,000 tickets were sold just through people who already signed up. So we said this earlier. So not only have ROH got money out of people through Honor Club, now those people are buying tickets through them as well. So you're making even more money on top of this. This is a absolutely phenomenal win for Ring of Honor and New Japan. This is monumental. Like, it was such a great result. You told me this story because I hadn't heard this until I came into the studio today. I had the biggest smile on my face when you told me, because what a great story.
Because I think, and we've talked about it, we're apprehensive that maybe All In could be the bubble burst moment.
Yeah.
Big empires usually get the most decadent and over the top just before they fall completely on their face. And that's what I've got here. I'm like, is All In going to be this big revolutionizing thing for the wrestling scene where you'll have viable, more adult-orientated alternatives to WWE? Or is that going to be the end and actually WWE going to crush it and buy everyone up and it's just going to be 10 years of WWE unopposed and Roman Reigns matches in main events?
Or is it going to be that All In, everyone bought into All In because it was the first of its kind, but then wouldn't show up for events that happened after it? Because, we want to support All In because that's the big thing, but I'm not going to buy a Ring of Honor ticket the following week because I only really wanted to do All In as that big mega show.
Yeah, to be there for the first one.
Yeah, exactly. But it turns out, absolutely not. It looks like this show is now going to sell out Madison Square Garden. And that in itself is absolutely it's awesome news.
Do you want a fact?
I've read this in the Observer, so I already know this. But I absolutely love this fact. I think it's just fascinating.
Yeah. So if it does sell out, and they've sold 9,000 tickets, they've 60% of their tickets on the 2 days before they actually go on sale.
Yep.
That's just an insane sentence. So if it does go on to sell out, very strong chance that it will. This will become the first pro wrestling event ever held in North America to do a $1 million gate that wasn't promoted by Vince McMahon. That's more than WCW. That's more than TNA ever did. ECW.
It's a $1 million gate, man.
It's insane. Granted, there are things like inflation in there, like milk doesn't cost the same anymore.
It's your famous example.
Milk was like 5p a pint in the 90s, and now it's £200 and you have to have a mortgage.
I used to, back in my day, I would go to town with £5, and that would get me the bus in, the bus out, my cinema ticket, and lunch.
Yeah, it's like when people say, yeah, but Avatar beat Gone with the Wind. I'm like, but back then tickets were 20p.
You had to pay 20 quid because it's in 3D.
Yeah, the 3D's the argument as well. So this is all those caveats aside, it's still so impressive, considering that those WCW shows, sure, you account for inflation, but WCW was on national TV and was getting like 4.0s in the ratings.
Yes, they were getting like
every Monday.
8 million people were watching wrestling around that time. That's more than was watching wrestling at this point.
Yeah, and ROH is, it's not even in every territory in the country.
No.
In the States, and they've managed to do this. New Japan even less so.
Yeah.
It's quite a niche product, it's a Japanese product in the United States. So it's so so optimistic.
So I'm going to scroll down because there was another fact that I love here as well. So,
Oh, yeah.
So this is a quote from The Observer. If it does sell out, and it would appear that would be a given at this point, it would be the first pro wrestling show to sell out Madison Square Garden since October 3rd, 2015, which was built around Brock Lesnar's return to the building. Prior to that, WWE's last sellout was on December 27th, 2012, and that was a live Raw episode. So even WWE can't sell out Madison Square Garden. They couldn't sell out Madison Square Garden with Ronda Rousey and The Undertaker's first match in MSG in 8 years. Like, that drew 13,000 fans. It didn't sell out the place. And ROH and New Japan are looking to sell out the place.
And that is a shot fired directly at Vince McMahon, because he,
his father promoted there.
Yeah.
Bruno Sammartino sold it out multiple millions of times. That's his dad. Vince McMahon loves that building so much, and for someone else to come in and sell it out when he currently can't, that is the biggest shot that could possibly be fired. That's a bigger shot than All In for me.
Yes, yeah. We're all going crazy about All In, and that's still an amazing accolade and sort of milestone in wrestling. But this is 15,000. This is 50% more tickets. It's so, as Meltzer points out in the Observer article on this, WWE are still so far above. They're making so much money.
So far and away.
The Fox TV deal, all the money-making streams they've got coming in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, if you were a rational, just like level-headed business person, you would go, that isn't the same product like we really appeal to. That this might create some good competition. Let's try and make our product better. And anyway, that's almost to the side. We are still way ahead in revenue terms.
So far and ahead. Like, no one is offering Ring of Honor, New Japan, Impact, a multi-billion-dollar deal to put them on television. Like, no one is doing that.
But wrestling, in WWE at least, is still pretty carny. And this is a family-run business who, this is a man who suspended someone because he slightly pushed him. And he was going to suspend him for like 90 days. It got reduced. This is the Titus O'Neil incident.
And that man was Dad of the Year.
Yeah. There are so many stories about Vince McMahon flying off the handle for little things. This is like 3 big things put together back to back.
Who knows what's going to happen off the back of this?
So yeah, that's speculate. What's the fallout going to be? The thing that Meltzer points out as probably the most obvious thing is all those guys, all those chess pieces in the middle of the board that are ripe for the taking to the other side. Your Kenny Omega, whose contract expires at the end of January for New Japan. You've got the Young Bucks, don't know when their one expires, but Marty Scurll, just Pentagon, all these guys who aren't really like affiliated to one company long term. They suddenly have, like, their price is never going to be higher than it is in the next 6 months for a wrestler. And it's not like WWE don't have the resources and money. So I think it's really going to come down to a principle thing. If Kenny Omega is offered $10 million a year to wrestle for WWE,
like a Brock Lesnar level contract.
Yeah, like, why wouldn't you? I'm not going to say, well, wrestling, blah, blah, blah. Why, I have no qualms with someone who goes and does it there.
Absolutely,
if that's
not
the case.
Well, this is the thing, is that the report was, when All In sold out, it was at that point, the report was, WWE can't do anything to stop All In now, because it's sold out, it's 10,000 seats. So all you can really do is target the people that are on that show. And they got one of them. They got Deonna Purrazzo to sign in, and she was part of the Mae Young Classic. She dropped out of All In to sign with WWE. They didn't get any of the quote-unquote big names. But this is a much bigger deal, as I say, because this is the Madison Square Garden thing. So can you imagine ROH New Japan, they announced they've sold out Madison Square Garden with Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. Come January, WWE signed those 3 people and take them off that show. That's a proper WWE move.
Yeah.
Is to just essentially we can't stop that show happening now, but we can take away the pieces from it.
They've done it this year with WOS Wrestling.
Yeah.
And all that, they just accelerated these UK WWE UK plans without even having a network to put it on over here. They never sold the TV show in the end.
And that was so patently obvious from the NXT UK announcement. Triple H said, we're launching... That t-shirt's proper gone now. We're launching this brand. And that was it. And I turned to you and I said, they haven't got a TV deal. They've got absolutely nothing. They haven't even announced when it's going to be on the network. They've announced we're doing all these TV tapings. We're going to tape all these hours of TV. And I said to you, I was like, when? When's it airing?
And the informed speculation is the reason they did this is so they could sign up lots of UK wrestlers to stop them wrestling for this new potential competitor.
Which is on ITV in prime time.
Yeah. And so this is definitely in their MO. That's only the most recent example. It's an example that happened like a couple of months ago.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, and like from a business perspective, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
You can't really hate the players of this particular game, although they did write the rules of that game back in the 80s. So it's really, really interesting. But that's like, it's not open and shut as WWE being the big boys. Like, who's to say Sinclair won't fork out some big money deals? Some of the boys get contracts with Sinclair rather than ROH, guaranteed deals, WCW style.
They start putting some money into Ring of Honor, really up its production values, put it out into a much bigger channel, put it out into much more syndication, give it a bigger audience for it to play with. Like, I said one of the other big stories I thought from the week really was All In signing a deal with WGN America. The first hour of All In is going to be available on cable television. That's a really big thing. That's available in more or less 80 million homes, give or take. You know, there's probably people who can't. It's not part of their package. It might not be this and the other, but ostensibly it reaches out to 80 million homes potentially.
Yeah,
and that's massive. So could Sinclair do something big like this? Are they going to put out not as competition, but as a viable alternative? The same thing that Impact always. That's always what they place themselves to be, with a viable alternative to WWE. But then when Bischoff and Hogan came in, they were like, no, we're going to be competitors. We're going to go on Monday night head-to-head, and it flopped badly. You know, everyone fell flat on their face. But a smarter move would be, let's put it on a different time, let's put it on a different day, but to a big audience, and will be an alternative.
You've reminded me of the interviews that the Sinclair guys were doing before the big MSG show was actually announced, and all that controversy kicked off with it being pulled by WWE and then it becoming back in. It wasn't Joe Koff. It was whoever the high up guy in Sinclair Broadcasting was, and he was like, "Look, All In just sold out 10,000 seats. That we've all started paying attention to this now because this is a real big money making opportunity, and that's what business is like, money." So he said, yeah, we're going to start investing more in the production. We're going to put on this MSG show. That was where the first inkling of them running it came from. This interview with like the Baltimore Times, and their first venture into a larger show, doing this. In that short a time space, and quite clearly going to sell out beyond what WWE are doing. Like, that's only good news for ROH and Sinclair's faith in Ring of Honor as a product and more reinvestment into them. It's really exciting.
Not only that, but you look at and you just reminded me then of the interview that Harold Meach did when talking about New Japan. His whole deal was like, look, our subscriber numbers cannot compete with what WWE do. They've got like 2 million subscribers. We have 100,000 subscribers. Like, it's not even in the same ballpark, really. But that's not where the money is. The money is in TV deals. That's what WWE do very, very well, is they sign these big lucrative TV deals. And as the first non-Japanese owner of of New Japan, president, sorry, that's what he wants to do. He wants to be, I'm a native English speaker, so I want to be able to go out to these countries and strike up these big TV deals and get New Japan the exposure outside of Japan and get it out to a much wider market.
And if there's all this extra money being pumped in from the non-WWE side, it doesn't just become a case of WWE going, oh, we want some Omega, we want some Skrull, we want some Young Bucks. It might become a case, and we spoke about this a few weeks ago, of the New Japan ROH alliance going, we want Nakamura back. We want a Finn Balor back.
Yeah.
We want John Cena.
We're gonna make the big money plays.
Yeah.
And as you say, like, can you imagine that come January, when Kenny Omega's deal comes up, they don't go over to WWE. Instead, they make the big announcement that we are signing exclusively with New Japan, and we've got this deal with Ring of Honor. As you said there, Sinclair make the big money offer instead, rather than WWE. And then you have almost got that almost WCW-like mentality of starting to poach wrestlers when their contracts come up and bring talent over and create a viable alternative.
But the difference this time round is that back in the 90s, it was even more carny, and all those wrestlers were just in it for the money. Whereas I genuinely believe now, 2 decades afterwards, a lot of the wrestlers are doing this because they love wrestling.
Absolutely.
And they want to build something that lasts. Look at All In.
I can see someone like Cody for sure, Kenny Omega, the Bucks, Skrull, all of these guys. I could see them taking a lower offer to be with New Japan and Ring of Honor than taking the big money deal in WWE for that purpose of just like, we want to wrestle. We want to make these big wrestling shows. We want to do the things that we love doing and make this a success. I can really see them going for something like that. It's time for some crap gimmicks. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, I'm new to the show, what the heckins is a crap gimmick? Crap gimmick is our little segment we do here where you, the SWAF Nation, pitch to us your crap gimmicks that we could potentially sign to Crap Gimmick Wrestling. We are the ones who holds the power. You hold the creativity. If you've got any suggestions, email them over luke@wrestletalk.com. I'll say that one more time, luke@wrestletalk.com, because I still get messages from people asking where to send them. It's luke@wrestletalk.com.
You're already filtering yourself out. That's the first hurdle. You've tripped over it onto your face.
And someone made the suggestion as well. I forget who it was, so I apologise for that. But also suggested letting you know when the submission that I'm going to read out was sent, so they know that if I've already passed the date where you sent yours and it has not been used, then you may want to rethink it, maybe restructure it, and send it back through again. I do have a massive backlog, currently about 180 or so of me still to get through. But here we got Dan Rogers. This was sent to us on June 27th. The Mime, who looks like a generic black-suited, white-faced mime that you would see on a street corner. During interviews, he holds up pre-made cue cards or communicates via rudimentary sign language, including his trademark catchphrase, and he points to the camera, then covers up his mouth, points a cup around his ear, and then points to his chest. You can't hear me.
Nice.
He never makes a noise during matches and is overly dramatic when selling. He is all about wrestling as a performance art and gets angry when heels do not show proper respect for it. He essentially dislikes loudmouth heels. His finisher is a rear naked choke that he calls the silencer.
I really like this. I didn't start out liking it, but as soon as you started about how he would wrestle in the ring with the big overdramatic mime selling, I really like that. I would add one thing to it though. Mm-hmm. If he wouldn't use weapons, he would mime out a weapon, pick it, and then the opponent would react,
sell for it
to this like invisible chair.
Love that.
Oh,
that's a great little
That's
addition.
good. I like the mime.
Okay, so this is an email in from, and I say his name wrong every time because he's a regular pod swafter, Stefan Zucic, I believe it is. He looks like Zack Ryder, I can tell you that much.
There's multiple pitfalls in that name. It's like it looks like Stephen, but it's Stefan.
Yeah, well that's it. Like,
and then I would say Zucic. Or,
you'd say Zucic.
I don't know.
Because
Zucic.
It's my middle name and it's spelt the exact same way. So I've always been calling him Stephen, but then I've been told that it's Stefan. So Mrs. Jones.
I think he's just having you on.
It probably is. He's just mocking us now at this point. Mrs. Jones is his suggestion. She is a typical mother, protective of her own, caring, but she doesn't put up for any BS. Her breaking point is when someone mentions her family. She is known to smother people and she comes down to the ring with curlers in her hair. She's in comfortable clothes, just like she's doing chores around the house with a glass of Chardonnay. Her moveset includes...
It's my mum.
She gonna be that fit as well.
Hey! When did the mum jokes come out? So I left those behind at school.
No, sorry. She's in comfortable clothes like she's doing...
Sorry for having a genetically attractive family.
Her moveset includes backhand chops, leg sweeps, bicycle kicks, scissor kicks, amongst others. She gives her opponent a super kick and tells them to brush their teeth 3 times a day. She also uses a wooden soup spoon as a weapon if you cast her as a heel. Her signature move is a clothesline. Her finishers are a well-done chicken wing because you don't want to get sick. And her finishing move really is the GTS because people are up past their bedtime.
That's good. I like that. It's a good visual. Everything you've like spoken about there fits within the character.
It screamed glow to me.
Yeah, but I'm digging the mime more.
Mime is certainly. I think mime is certainly above that at the moment. But let's see if Lars Welton from June 29th can topple the mime.
Already a win with a name of Lars.
Well,
first name.
His suggestion is poem writer. He is a tall, strong, wide man. Looks a bit like Lars Sullivan. He has long, fluffy black hair, a clean-shaven face, and he wears glasses. He is barely fitting in his traditional 16th century outfit and will often rip out of it in matches. He carries around a book and a writing feather from which he reads a poem about his opponent or the town he is in before every match. Think Elias. Poe has got a wide arsenal of moves. No top rope nonsense though. He is a classic fighter. His main finisher is the last couplet, which is a double hammerlock piledriver. Furthermore, he uses the shake spear, which is a spear obviously.
Nice.
The penta-stitch punch, which is a 5-knuckle shuffle, but instead of "you can't see me," Poe yells "to see or not to see." And last but not least, the poetry corner, a crossbody into his opponent who is hanging from the top turnbuckle. He often finds himself during matches thinking of new poems and going outside of the ring to write them down.
That's good. This is a learned fellow. Do you get the penta-stitch?
Well, you're going to have to explain that to me because you are a much smarter man than I.
I believe it's a play on the rhythm of verse that William Shakespeare would use, which is the iambic pentameter. 10 syllables aligned, stress, unstress, stress, unstress. Alternating.
Well,
if it is...
WrestleRamble, you learn things as well.
Unless there's a guy called Joe Pentastitch, who was a famous poet that I've never heard of. This is yeah.
I'll be honest, I thought you'd go for poem writer. I thought
really?
Yeah,
because I like poetry.
Yeah, and it appeals to Poetry Corner. I mean, he's even named one of the moves after the segment we do on the podcast.
Yeah, it's good. It's good for that.
And the Shakespeare is very good.
I just feel like there's there's the 16th century stuff and something doesn't gel. I feel like there's two different characters in here. Do you know what I mean?
Interesting. I quite like it. I think I like this guy that being this poet that essentially like almost our Elias character who reads poetry about the town that he's in and why that town smells. But I also kind of like the juxtaposition of that, of him being a Lars Sullivan sized, gargantuan beast wearing these clothes that are sort of like he's ripping out of, like the Incredible Hulk doing poetry.
Yeah.
A Jack Kirby creation come to life reading poetry.
I think it's the wide arsenal of moves and the no top rope stuff and the classic fighter stuff. That's
where it doesn't really work.
Yeah, that was the line that jarred with me.
You want to be a powerhouse. Although I do like to see or not to see.
That's good.
That's very funny. And as I said, the Shakespeare.
But is it funnier than the "you can't hear me"?
Yeah, I mean,
I've got it. That was good. They're all good as always, but I've got to go with Dan Rogers's. How about you?
I'm going with Dan Rogers as well. Congratulations, the mime. And if you want to submit any questions to the mailbag, all you've got to do is become one of our awesome pledge hammers by pledging on Patreon at any dollar amount. We've had a massive surge of new pledge hammers off the back of us putting up the poll for what song the losing team is going to do at Wrestling MediaCon against Cultaholic in our SummerSlam predictions.
And I suppose now is a good time to sort of debut this or announce this, but we mentioned it before. The studio's in bad repair. We can't really do anything that involves putting stuff down here. So, we can't do the new set yet. We can't do the going live. That's all on a hiatus.
Pretty much.
But the new set is still in the background. It's just not physically. Just no. It's a project that's still going on.
It's a bigger project.
Quotes today. We got quotes.
Yeah.
Obscenely expensive quotes. Got to get rid of that sort of pyro display that happens at the start of every episode.
I thought it was worthwhile, but really when you think about it, maybe not.
WWE get away with not having it.
Yeah, totally.
I think we can.
I don't think anyone really cares that at this point anymore.
So what we've done instead, because everyone keeps asking for NXT reviews, the reason we don't do them on the channel is because people don't watch them.
Yeah, pretty much.
But the people who love NXT would watch it, but there's nowhere near as many of you
That
as
is
there are Raw or SmackDown.
Yeah, it's a smaller audience.
Yeah, so it's nowhere near worth us making it. Like, it wouldn't work.
We'd
out
lose
financially.
money,
We'd
essentially.
lose money.
Yeah.
So, and we need that money to
pay mortgages,
to pay for Fake Ador's
masks,
expensive mask collection. So we have,
which I often put above my mortgages.
yeah, our next goal is for 750 Patreons. We're at like 630.
630 around that.
And if we get there, that means NXT Rambles with you and Fake Ador.
It's going to be me and Fake Ador, the NXT guys, because you don't care about the product. You don't like it that much.
I do.
Either.
I'm just busy.
You don't watch it just the same way as a lot of people don't. You don't watch NXT, but me and Fake Ador bloody love NXT. And so we're going to be doing weekly NXT reviews once we hit that Patreon goal. And we're very excited about it.
So if you're watching the show on YouTube or if you're a listener on the podcast version, then please do. And that sounds exciting. Then please go and support WrestleTalk so we can make another show.
Exactly, and that's a show as well that will be for everyone as well.
Oh yeah,
it won't just be for Patreon backers. It will just go up on a regular channel, which also means there's another podcast episode.
Huh.
Which means you're essentially going to be getting 5 podcasts a week. Yes, at the moment.
4.
Because we've got the WOS reviews at the moment.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So if we reach that Patreon that Patreon goal while WOS is still on, that means you'll get 5 podcasts. Imagine what's going to happen on pay-per-view weeks. Like, come SummerSlam, when you've got like those big weekends when you've got NXT TakeOver and the
it's coming up, there's SummerSlam.
Prediction shows. They're going to be podcasts out the wazoo.
It's going to be that thing where everyone's going to be really great. We're going to shoot through to like 900 Patreons and we go, oh, I didn't think it would happen this fast. and we don't have the resources.
And then people are going to be like, you lads put out too much content. Like, I can't keep up with it.
Anyway, Mailbag.
Mailbag. You also get
That's another perk from Patreon.
You also get access to all of our bonus shows on there, like WrestleRamble Extra and Ramble Club. But the Mailbag. Cameron Sykes asks, The Rock returns to WWE for one last match, but not against an established headliner. Who would you like for him to face?
Rock the Dwayne Johnson. Well, Eric Rowan. Let's just get the obvious answer out the way
first. The rematch that everyone's been dying to see. Yeah, totally. The WrestleMania rematch, no less. Can I answer this? And not just because it's the one that has been sort of teased online, but it's Elias. Because you can do the Rock concerts versus Elias concerts. It's a great way to put Elias over and maybe give him that little bit of a push. But really, you'd want to be able to use The Rock to create a new star.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would go for someone like a Ricochet, maybe. Like someone you could really push then into that upper echelon and use the star power of The Rock and Ricochet.
That would be a really strange dynamic. Like 40, 50-year-old, whatever he is, Eternal Life Rock against Ricochet.
Black Adam versus Ricochet.
Yeah,
man.
I don't know how that match would... I'm sure it'd be like... Ricochet would do 95% of it. That'd be interesting.
Just bump around The Rock.
So The Rock would have to be a heel there.
No, I think you still maybe, but someone actually suggested, would you bring The Rock back to be a heel versus Roman Reigns? But I don't think that's ever going to really work.
Well,
people aren't going to boo The Rock at this point.
No. He's gone past that. It was like there was a certain point in HBK's career where he couldn't be heel anymore because he was just too lovable and
Ric
great.
Flair. Can't turn Ric Flair heel at this point. TNA tried it.
I would say it's not like he's an unestablished star, but he's a star that needs properly establishing at the top of the company, and that's a Roman Reigns heel versus babyface The Rock. Babyface Rock comes back and just Reigns destroys him. I think that would be the best way. But in terms of creating a new star, again, for that babyface Rock heel up-and-comer dynamic, Adam Cole, baby.
I was about to say the exact same thing, because also you can do the Undisputed Era in that as well. Almost do like a Nexus-style beatdown on The Rock and leave him laying.
Yeah.
The Rock's big return to WWE. We haven't seen him in a few years. Comes out to do a promo. Out of nowhere, the Undisputed Era come in and do a big old beatdown on him, and you build up to an Adam Cole versus Rock match.
Yeah, and they lose all their tag matches building up to it. It'll be great WWE booking.
Absolutely. It's the way to get people over. Josh Lee asks, who do you think has the best finishing move in WWE and who has the worst? and why. One of my favourites is the End of Days by Baron Corbin, as it looks cool, and it looks like it would actually hurt someone, whereas I hate the Selena del Sol, maybe spelt wrong, as it looks stupid and it looks like it hurts Kalisto more than them. Thanks for the warm welcome back to Patreon. Feels great to be a pledge hammer again. Thank you, Josh.
Welcome back,
Welcome back.
Josh
He's got another question as well, but we'll do that one next week.
So I would... Obviously, Belly to Bailey is a just terrible finisher.
You hate Dakota Kai's finisher as well, where she jumps on their back with her knees and then also does like a Canadian Destroyer backbreaker thing.
Bit contrived. So I'm gonna go for quite a weird one, and it's not like it's
this is worst.
It's worst, but it's not worst. It's just I think it's something worth discussing. I have never bought into the Phenomenal Forearm as a finishing move.
That's fair enough, man.
It's a great setup, but it's not like in terms of a finishing move. I get that it's like a proper knockout blow, and like that way it makes sense. But I grew up watching that as a setup move in TNA.
You and I are Styles Clash kids.
Yeah.
So when you see him doing moves that aren't really the Styles Clash, like when he debuted in WWE and he wasn't using the Clash, and he was trying to get over these new finishing moves. It's really funny if you go back and watch like AJ's early matches, like when he was starting to use the forearm, because you can in WWE, because you can see him doing the internal logic of like, how am I going to get this move over? So he started doing things like he was elbowing the top rope to get people to start like chant along with it. Did that as his WrestleMania match at Chris Jericho, and like no one's reacting to it whatsoever.
Like they're tuning up the band.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's over now as a finishing move, but yeah, I can see your point. I don't think it's the worst finisher.
No, it isn't at all. It's like the worst finisher's Bailey's. So but everyone already knows that. But so I just thought I'd add an interesting one.
But that's a move that got over though. Like it's a move that people buy into. Yeah, so I think that's always that. But what do you think is the best finisher?
Best finisher. I always. Oh, this is tough. I think the F5 always looks great.
Oh, F5 is such a good move.
What do you think?
Well, I think for my worst, I'm going to go with the coup de grace. I don't really like the coup de grace as a finisher. Like
aesthetically, it's not very pleasing.
Yeah, like when Low Key does it, and and he really sticks it down, and you're like, oh man, you've just stood on their, you've broken every one one of their ribs and punctured their heart and lungs.
But that's because he's actually wrestling for real, and he doesn't know it to work.
Yeah. And I've always been a mark for the Canadian Destroyer as well, just because I think it's so contrived, but it looks lovely. And actually, thing is, Murphy's Law, Buddy Murphy's finish is really cool. That's a really, really smart looking finisher move. I think that might be my favourite one because it's so unique. It's sort of like an encounter, but yeah, the F5's a great move.
You know what? At the moment, like if we're just talking about finishers right now, the curb stomp.
Yeah.
I love how Seth Rollins has just been, because he somehow still catches me by surprise, even when the guy is like on all fours. Like, what's going to happen next? Oh, it was the curb stomp. The match is over. Like, I love the curb stomp very much.
I've said this before as well, as a bit of a controversial choice for worst. I don't like the Rainmaker. I've never been a fan of the Rainmaker as a finish move. It never looks like it has any impact and would take anyone out. It's not like when Bradshaw did the clothesline from hell and would like literally decapitate people. It's sort of like it always just looks like people just tend to fall down. It's like the AA. It's just you feel gently on your back.
I disagree.
Well, that's fair enough. That's why we have different opinions. Gal Eldar has written in to say, "Hi guys, I'm planning to do my go next year for my first ever WrestleMania in New York for Mania 35. So I'd love to hear what your ideal main event of the show is. I'm not talking about I'm talking more about realistic options, not fantasy booking like Styles versus Omega, although going by our conversation earlier of like them signing him up in January, maybe that could be an option. Personally, I'd love to go with anything involving Rollins or AJ, ideally against each other. I know I'll probably get Roman again, but a man can dream. So what do you think? What would your dream WrestleMania main event be?
Dream? But they said realistic.
Yeah.
Realistic. See, as soon as you say realistic, my mind gets anchored down by this Roman Reigns weight.
Well, no, but
I think it's going to be Braun Strowman versus Roman Reigns.
Yeah, but I don't think what they mean is like, what would you like to see, rather than like, what do you think we're going to get?
Yeah.
I mean, because for me personally, like, it's sort of almost a bit of that's not much a dream match, but I think it's going to be a really terrific match. Would be Rousey Charlotte. at WrestleMania. I think those two would have an absolutely outstanding match.
Yeah, and it'll feel big time as well.
It will feel really big. I think that's a real big match that they could put on as the main event. AJ versus Rollins would be that would be a really good contest as well, if given the right time.
Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles.
Oof, yeah, absolutely. That's awesome.
They've kept them apart. They haven't had a.
They had one
match.
They had a non-title match.
Yeah, they did on SmackDown.
Big Cass stopped it. Don't you remember? That was part of that amazing feud that Daniel Bryan came out of retirement for.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, a Bryan Styles maybe. Bryan Nakamura.
Oh mate, Bryan Shane McMahon. That's
Bryan
where you want
Kurt
to go.
Angle.
That's Josh Lee's second question. So finally, from Craig Roberts, I've been sat here wondering for the last half hour regarding the state of the WWE product. Does Vince have too many yes men in his ears when it comes to the final decision on what will happen in a certain storyline or a certain superstar's push? I think he means push. He's written Porsche. Maybe he wants to talk about wrestlers' Porsches.
John Cena loves cars.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just looking at that Porsche. That's not the right Porsche. One of the 911, mate. That's what you really want. Showing my age there. That's the only Porsche car I could think of. It was one that came out in the 80s. In my opinion, if you want more of missing words here. In my opinion, if more of the agents backstage really say what they felt, even if it was negative to Vince, what does that do? If the majority of the viewers can see faults with the presentation storyline, why can't Vince? But I think Vince doesn't see the faults in storylines or presentation of things. I think in Vince's eyes, it's the best product. Because Vince quite famously doesn't watch other wrestling. So, and that's been forever. When he gets new guys in, he doesn't watch any of their matches elsewhere. That's why he has talent scouts. That's why he has head of talent relations to do that sort of thing. When a guy comes in, that's the first time he's ever really seeing them. So, yeah. So to Vince McMahon, WWE is the only way that wrestling is presented. So he wouldn't see an issue with it.
Yeah, and I think when you work in a corporation or for a company that is so all-encompassing like that, it sounds like a very demanding job. Yeah, I don't think many people would be able to see beyond their own segments. And they think, it's just a week-to-week grind of getting this stuff out last minute. And, that one was good, that one wasn't so bad. But actually, if you step back and see it from a viewer's, fans like us's eyes, it's all subpar.
Yeah.
Although the vast majority is.
Exactly. Vince doesn't even watch NXT.
Yeah. So I'm sure there are the more agreeable people to him are going to get higher up in the company. That's CM Punk's famous line: "You surround yourself with yes men like John Laurinaitis."
Yeah. People who just tell you you're doing a great job and not actually telling you that what you're doing isn't working. And maybe that is it probably is the case to this day, really. Vince surrounds himself with the people that he's worked with for years and the people that he very much likes and has good working relations with. Kevin Dunn's been directing WWE TV now for decades, and things like that. He's had the sort of, similar producers, always been working with Michael Hayes when Hayes came over. Working with John Laurinaitis for years when he was head of talent relations. He works with people that he likes who are perhaps yes men. Bruce Pritchard was a yes man, for a long portion when he was working there.
Still is.
You're right, he still is. So I think, from my personal standpoint, I don't think that a yes man is the best thing for successful businesses. Should clarify that. This is a very successful business. So whatever Vince has done, clearly it has worked. However, I think if you want to improve a product, you don't want to have someone just constantly telling you, what you're doing is great. You want people to challenge you and say, I don't think it should be this way. I think it should be more this way. And Vince grabbed the brass ring, that famous phrase he said on the Stone Cold podcast, and then people tried to do it, and so he buried them.
Yeah. I can't remember who it is. It might be Mark Cuban. Or Ray Dalio's company. They've got a thing where if you have an idea, you're like, cool, this is my idea, I feel really passionate about it, everyone on the team selects someone else to be like that anti-guy. And that person, but just for debate's sense, has to try and find every possible hole in that plan and be like, no, what about this? What about this? That's not going to work. And not only does it expose things that you might not have thought of because you were so enamored with your own idea, which happens all the time. I'm certainly fallen victim to it. But then it makes you find solutions for things you never knew. And if you can't, maybe that isn't a foolproof plan. So I think those sorts of people, those disruptors in companies, are very, very useful.
I agree.
Paul Heyman seems to have been one at some point.
But he was suspended for it.
Well, yeah, anyone who does get like that seems to find themselves outside the company pretty quickly. Jimmy Jacobs, maybe. Another example.
Yeah.
But that's all we've got time for today's episode. Please click the videos that have just appeared on our laps to catch up with the latest WrestleTalk awesome stuff. And this little button here, which will subscribe you to the Apple podcast version of this show with its exclusive intros and outros. I've been Ollie Davis, this has been Luke Owen, and that was Rambling.